Welcome all. I'm Joel Angelillo, a member of the steering committee of MetroWest Climate Solutions, and we're all so glad you could join us this evening. Um, just to tell you a little bit about MetroWest Climate Solutions, we are formed in 2019. We're a consortium of local organizations all interested in environmental issues. And since 2019, we've been hosting monthly programs on climate issues. Probably 40 plus programs. Here's a sampling of the types of things we've done, everything from home improvement issues to carbon tax to issues at the State House, etc. So all these programs are available, or most of them, on MetroWestClimateSolutions.org, the video recordings of them. And our next program, before we get to tonight's program, our next program is we're doing something very different we've never done before, a bike drive in Wayland on Saturday, May 16th. This is at the Wayland Town Center area where the Ace Hardware is. So if you have bikes you would like to recycle, we're working with the Bike Connector, a great organization up in Lowell. So let's dive into tonight's program, How Trees Fight Climate Change. I'd like to introduce, we're very happy and honored to have tonight David Mashula, and he is the co-founder of Speak for the Trees and is currently serves as the executive director. Prior to founding the organization, David was a science teacher at the high school and college levels. His approach was to engage students in expanding their understanding of science through a combined lens of politics, sociology, and history. I wish he was my science teacher back in my high school and college days. A lifelong environmentalist, he is interested in the intersection of science, history, democracy, justice, and environment. He holds a BA in philosophy of science and an MA in the history of science and a PhD in science education. He is a senior fellow at the Environmental Leadership Program, a graduate of the Green Communities Leadership Institute, and serves as co-chair of the Urban Ecology Collaborative. So there's a lot more information on their website, treeboston.org. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to David. And I've stopped sharing. Hopefully, you can share your screen.
I will share in a sec. Thank you so much for inviting me today. Let me just get my screen up. And here we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep. Yes, we can.
All right. So thank you for inviting me today. I'm really excited to share what I've been up to. Every time I do a presentation like this, I sort of it gives me a chance to take a step back and see how much the organization has grown in the past 7 or 8 years. We just actually celebrated I forgot to note it, our 8th anniversary on April 15th. And I think people have long recognized the beauty and importance of trees, and that's become especially acute as we have entered and are in the era of climate change, and our urban areas and the people who live there often don't have the benefits or don't have receive as many benefits from trees as people out in, for example, the Metro West area. So this is a topic that I hold near and dear to my heart. I'm happy to be here to share it with you. And then at the end, I think there's some actually really great action items that we've been involved with that I hope that you can assist with. So let me see if this works. So before we begin, and you guys are getting a little bit of a sneak peek. So today was Earth Day. It's always on April 22nd. We don't try to compete with Earth Day because there's so much going on. We actually celebrate our big environmental day on Arbor Day, which is the last Friday in April, which is in 2 days. And on Friday, we're going to be releasing our new branding. So we're actually changing our name to Tree Boston. We have a new logo. So if you've been to our website, you'll see a different logo there right now. I'm really excited for this change. It's been a long time in the works. I think it just more clearly encapsulates who we are and what we do. And I just love the logo. We had a designer make it for us. So You'll be hearing me probably go between Speak for the Trees and Tree Boston as I go through the presentation. I'm still getting used to the new name myself, but I'm excited to. Either way, our mission is still our mission. So, I'm going to go through a couple of things. First, I'm going to talk about what we mean by tree equity. Second, I'm going to share with you our mission. I'll share with you what we are doing to achieve tree equity. And then finally, I'll go through some of our goals that drive our work. But before we do, usually I do this with a live audience. I'm going to give you a little pop quiz, and I want you to take a minute to see. I don't know if the chat function's working here, but see if you can name these four things, or these four logos, I should say, these four pictures. I think most people probably know the first one is Target. We got Shell, we got BP, and then we got McDonald's. Let's see if the chat's working. There we go. Someone just dropped it in the chat, or Joel did. So feel free if you are able to. Um, I don't know if the chat is open or not, Joel, but um, all right, here's our second quiz. Oh, huh. Oh, there we go. Can you name these four things? And you've probably seen them more often than you've seen Target, Shell, BP. I'll give you a sec. I don't think the chat works in the for the audience. Um, and this is
No,
being really
they can use Q&A though.
oh Q&A, okay. And this is being really funky. It's not there we go. Red maple, tulip poplar, red oak, and green ash. So give yourself a pat on the back if you got one of those. If you got two of those, you should really be proud of yourself. If you got three of those, drop me a line. We should probably hire you to join our team. These are really common trees in and around the Boston area. Lovely trees, all of them. All right, so before we sort of dive into what we do in tree equity, here is a satellite image of Boston. You'll notice the airport's here, right? Logan Airport in East Boston. And I often ask people, and again, um, I don't know if Q&A is the best way to do this, but if someone could, or if folks had an idea of what this green thumb is, that you can sort of see it from a satellite, right? It sort of goes around this way. If anyone wanted to hazard a guess, and maybe we can go over to the Q&A to see if anyone has an idea.
We got one of the emerald necklace.
That is a very popular guess, and it is not the emerald necklace. No. Any others? Arnold Arboretum? Nope. This is actually Brookline. This is not a intentional green space in the way the Emerald Necklace or the Arboretum are. This is a political boundary that has been 150 years or so in the making. And if you've ever visited Alston Brighton over here, you can see, feel, and hear the difference when you cross the border into Brookline. Right? And this is what we talk about often when we talk about tree equity, is that many communities have more received the benefits and have more trees than others, and those often fall along what you would expect, issues relating to race, class, income, things like that. Um, so I'm sort of preaching to the choir every time I give this presentation. We know the many of the benefits of urban trees. These are just some of them. They filter pollutants, they cool our air, they have amazing health benefits for people, including reducing rates of disease, reducing obesity, They help increase and protect biodiversity, especially if you're planting trees that are supporting biodiversity. They help manage stormwater, they reduce stress. This is just a small sort of sliver, and I feel like every year scientists and researchers are discovering more and more about the benefits of trees. But not everyone gets those same benefits, and that has to do with things like redlining. Redlining was a practice in the 30s where banks would literally take a map of an urban area and uh, provide each neighborhood with a grade, A, B, C, or D. D being a hazard neighborhood that they should not invest in, what they called the fourth grade. C being questionable all the way up to A, which was sort of the ideal neighborhood. And that led to lots of disinvestment, less home ownership. And what's curious or what's interesting about this redlining across the country is that it correlates very strongly with tree canopy coverage in 2026. So a practice almost 100 years old continues its legacy today. Uh, and that leads to maps like this, where you can see, and I'll have another slide later, that there are neighborhoods that are much more uh, hot in the summer than others. And as you might imagine, these red spots here that are heat have many fewer trees than neighborhoods and areas that are blue, where there's a lot higher tree canopy coverage. And finally, it also maps onto social vulnerability, which is sort of a catch-all that value of th takes into account things like race, age, and socioeconomic status. So what we do at Tree Boston is we look at our work through three lenses. We look at our work through the lens of people, who lives in certain neighborhoods, right? What are might be the vulnerabilities to climate change? What is the environment like in those neighborhoods? Where is it hottest and dirtiest? And then finally, what is the canopy, the tree canopy in that neighborhood? And those are the neighborhoods, that's how we sort of target the work we do, is where is there the need, both environmental and demographic, and arboreal. And that's where we focus our efforts. Um, so here's an example, as I was saying before, we have some maps on our website where you can layer things like temperature versus tree canopy and take a slider and sort of see yourself the correlation between the two. You can choose any of the demographics we have on our website to compare to tree canopy coverage. So we have income, we have race, we have English language isolation, and you can really see how these factors correlate. Some more than others, but certainly this one I think correlates the strongest, right? As we probably experience on a hot summer day. So you go to our website here, treeboston.org/tree equity, and you can play with these maps. There are other tools. So if you do not live in Boston, don't worry. There is a great organization that we partner a lot with called American Forest, and they have a tool that is universal for all urban areas in the United States. I'm sure Weston and others are out there where they take data on the census block level, and they give every census block a tree equity score that depends not only on tree canopy coverage, but also on demographics and heat and things and public health. If you're interested in nerding out a little bit, they do have a really well um, explained methodology on their website as well. So that's treeequityscore.org. And for those of us, and you see things, we get information like this, right? Um, the percent children, the percent people of color, the unemployment rate, all these things are taken into account to come up with a score. And then you see the goal. And then this in this district, in this census block. The goal is 40%. They explain how they get this number, and the current canopy is only 3. So there's a gap of 37% here. Um, we're lucky that in Boston, we were the second city to receive the Tree Equity Score Analyzer. Now I think it's in over a dozen cities. But this tool dives down to the parcel level, where you can see you can see every parcel in Boston to understand where the opportunities are and what parcels down to the very individually owned, home or business could use trees. So that's a pretty amazing tool that only a few cities have, and Boston is one of them. So we see this as a critical issue as we face climate change and as Boston and other areas become more and more urbanized, to fix this problem of tree inequity. So our mission is to work together with community members to plant, preserve, care for, and advocate for trees, and expand the tree canopy in order to rebuild resilient neighborhoods and safeguard the health of all residents, repairing historic injustices that persist today as environmental inequities in urban communities. It's a mouthful. We do a lot, and I tell people my sort of elevator pitch is we plant, preserve, care for, and advocate for trees in areas where they're most needed in Boston. I love working for an urban forestry nonprofit because I get to play on a lot of puns. So we have 4 root values. We believe that urban resilience is crucial as we enter climate change, that everyone, no matter their zip code, deserves a clean and healthy environment, that connected communities are the backbone of safe spaces, social cohesion, and livable neighborhoods, and trees are one important way to connect communities together and bring people together. And finally, that the idea of action, that every resident, no matter where they live, no matter their physical, mental, economic strengths and abilities, can play an important role in solving both local and global environmental challenges. And through our model, our theory of change, we believe that if residents, organizations, and municipal officials properly value, care for, and gather together to support Boston's urban forest, we believe Boston can become a healthier, more equitable, just, empathic, and resilient city. So we have a lot of programs that push this mission forward. And we focus on working at the community level with community organizations and with residents and with students across the city to help them learn about and act towards improving tree equity in Boston. And I'm going to run through a couple of these. And if you want in our Q&A session, you can ask me more about them. So like was said in the introduction, I'm trained as an educator. I spent a lot of time teaching high school students. The first program we ran in 2019 was our Teen Urban Tree Corps program. It's now in our 8th year. In 2020, during the pandemic, I was pretty sure we wouldn't run it. Everything was closed, and we ended up running this virtual program where teens met a couple of hours every week and created these amazing video montages. And if I can get this to work, I'm going to share this video that I really love of Hyde Park. The program now is teens are out in the field, they're watering trees, they're talking to people. It's very different work, but this captured a teen's voice. Let me know if you can hear it.
This is Hyde Park, located on the southwest edge of Boston.
Yes, we can hear it fine.
Known as a thriving small town in a big city. 30% of Hyde Park is covered by tree canopy. In spite of the tree canopy's benefits, Hyde Park still has risks that go unnoticed by the community. Hyde Park started out as farmland and open space surrounding the Neponset River. Families living in early Hyde Park were surrounded by woods, and the Hyde Park Historical Society referred to it as a wild and lonely place. In the 1950s, convenient transportation, a town-like feel, and affordability brought development. Historically, Hyde Park has promoted change through advocacy by supporting the first African American regiment. This voice for advocacy remains. The Black Lives Matter movement and disproportionate impacts of COVID-19 mobilized the 50% Black population of Hyde Park. Both of the issues are connected to environmental injustice. Environmental injustice leads to a lack of tree canopy in Black, low-income, and population-dense communities, like in Reedville and along Hyde Park Ave. Without trees to cool and filter air, Black Americans nationwide live in communities that make them more likely to die from asthma and heat stroke than white Americans. They also are more likely to die from coronavirus than white Americans. These statistics should not go unnoticed, so that we do not miss the opportunity for transformation that is possible at this moment, like Reverend Mariama White Hammond, activist and pastor of New Roots AME, told us. If we do not link the Black Lives Matter movement and COVID-19 with the environment, we will not be able to make important changes. But of all else, we want an equitable community, where everybody gets the benefits of trees and access to green space, where no one is forced to work and is put at risk of getting COVID-19, where Black lives mattered and weren't subjected to racism. If you want this future, you need to maintain the trees present, replace the ones cut down, and add trees to spaces that are free. But don't stop there. Support organizations doing projects to improve Hyde Park, like SWBCDC, and vote for candidates that meet your social and environmental needs in local elections. As WBCDC's Green Initiative Manager, Pat Alvarez, said, we have 10 years to stop climate change. 2050 is not going to cut it.
So we have a lot of videos on our website. Oh, I don't know if I'm muted. Hold on. Am I muted still? No. A lot of videos on our website where material where you can see other teens and their stories of the projects they made. That just happens to be the one that I find most well produced. So we do tree giveaways. So we have a tree giveaway coming up in a few weeks. We give residents trees to take home, usually shade trees, to plant in their yards, and we teach them how to plant them, and we follow up with them. To date, we've given away over 2,000 trees. We also do a lot of tree plantings. So we do public tree plantings in places like parks. This is a picture of a planting we did a couple of years ago over in Harambe Park and on the Mattapan-Dorchester line. We'll be there again next week planting trees. We're still struggling to like clean up our data. It's definitely over 700 trees. It might be closer to 900. I should have that information soon, but we've planted a lot of trees over the past 8 years. And we also have a program called Neighborwoods where we will plant trees for free in residents' yards. We'll help them select a tree, and then we'll come on site, and our staff will actually site it, plant it for them, teach them how to water it and care for it. We have a lot of education programs, so we have both in-school, after-school sort of enrichment in addition to our Teen Urban Tree Corps program, which our Teen Urban Tree Corps program is a 7-week summer program. It's now also a school year program where teens come into the office about 10 hours a week, and they do outreach and education and research projects with our staff. And then we also have a community tree keepers program that we've been developing that trains adults on how to advocate for, plant, and care for trees in their community. And finally, not finally, but we also do a lot of story sharing. I was sharing this video yesterday. I'll skip over it today, but I invite you to hop onto our website and look at some of the tree stories we have. I have a really, I have a conviction that humans learn best through storytelling and story sharing, build community through stories. And I'm also convinced that trees are sort of the perfect way to do that because everyone, I think, has a story to share about a tree. It's not, I think everyone has a memory of a tree, whether it's from their childhood, whether it's from when they planted a tree in memory of someone. That's one of my sort of hidden agendas here is to connect us together through our trees and see each other's humanity through the trees that are around us. Let's skip this. And finally, we do some advocacy work to preserve trees. So I don't know if folks remember, but right around 2020, 2021, there was a city project to remove over 100 trees on Melnea Boulevard, which has its own racist history. There's a Roxbury neighborhood there that was raised to make space for a highway in the 1950s. And what remains after that project was shelved was Melnea Boulevard. And at the time, lots of trees were planted in the 80s. And as you might imagine, they have grown quite big and tall. And a pretty busy thoroughfare that has a lot of traffic leading from the suburbs into the city. And a project was supposed to remove 100 of them and damage another 100 or so. And we worked with local community activists to ensure that that project would not happen. And eventually, the city retracted the project, and the trees still stand. So we do some of that work as well. And I think the place that I'd love to share more with you about, as those of you who have elected officials at the State House, is thinking about how we can bring more resources into communities that might not have as much as they need to plant and care for trees. The federal government, you might know, the Inflation Reduction Act that President Biden signed into law had $1.5 billion for urban and community forestry. That money was quickly pulled back, clawed back when President Trump entered the White House. And um, and not only that, but just last week, President Trump announced essentially a dissolution of the urban and community forestry program at the U.S. Forest Service. He's proposing many U.S. Forest Service offices to be relocated to Utah. There's offices all over the country, and the reorg will probably either entirely empty out the urban community forestry program or severely reduce it. So this is where I think our state can come in. And for the past couple of sessions, we've been working with Senator Cream, especially, but other senators as well, and also Rep. Owens from Watertown and Cambridge on a bill called an act establishing the Municipal Reforestation Program. I'm really proud to say that last week the Senate voted on the environmental bond bill, and an amendment by Senator Cream was introduced to put the municipal reforestation program into the bill. It was successfully put in the bill with, I think it was something like $30 million for urban forestry. So we have gathered over the past year or two a group called the Massachusetts Community Trees Coalition. I can share that link out. This is a statewide effort to work with our elected officials so they know how much people care for and want trees. The bill and its benefits are laid out in plain English on the website. What the bill provides. We've been working tirelessly over the past couple of years to make sure that not only do our elected officials know that we want this, but that people around the Commonwealth, folks like you, can get behind it, can call their elected officials and really let them know. And then hopefully get involved when that money comes through. So now the bond bill now goes to the House. where it will be taken up, and hopefully that amendment will remain in place. There's also another amendment in there that we're really happy about that costs no money. It is a update to the Public Shade Tree Act, which is Chapter 87 of Massachusetts Code, Massachusetts law, I should say. It's the oldest public shade tree bill in the country, and it essentially um, regulates the care of public shade trees. A public shade tree is any tree that essentially lives on the sidewalk, not in your yard, not in a park, but along a public right of way. The language in the current bill, sorry, the current law is so old that fines are assessed for horses that might damage a tree. So this bill is severely needed. It's an update to a really old law that tree wardens across the Commonwealth still adhere to, but it's really, really dated. And again, this is a amendment. This is the Public Shade Tree Act would cost nothing but make a huge difference. And it's been neglected, this bill, for the past 6 or 7 sessions because it's just not a very interesting bill for most people. But we're excited that it's made it into the bond bill. It's like I got stuck again. All right, there we go. So how are we going to get there? How are we going to bring tree equity to Boston? Well, um, we're going to increase Boston's tree canopy equitably, focusing on environmental justice neighborhoods and doing our planting, preservation, community outreach work in these neighborhoods. We are going to work closely with local groups and organizations to create a robust and sustainable network of tree advocates. I think one thing I've noticed in my work here is that you can get really excited about trees, and people do, and you can build networks. But the key question is, how do you sustain it? Right? And I think we have an opportunity right now at this moment in history where trees are really being noticed. They're having their moment in the sun, and it's time that Boston sort of join this effort. When I founded Tree Boston, out of the 30 largest cities in the country, 28 of them had urban forestry nonprofits. So two did not. Chicago had one, New York has one, San Francisco, LA has several, Miami. Boston was lonely there on the list with Las Vegas. So not very good company. Proud to say that Boston now has one, and I'm also proud to say Las Vegas has one now too, actually. Um, hmm. I don't know what this. Okay. We think that partnering with municipal officials is critical. They do so much great work. They need all the support they can get. They are constantly under-resourced. So we want to make sure that we're supporting them, that we're lifting up their work and letting them, showcasing how important their work is and letting them do their work and get out of the way of their work, but also finding ways to expand and improve their work by advocating for additional resources. We continue to engage residents, not only through education, but we're teaching folks how to water and care for trees. And finally, like I said, we want to update not only state ordinances and laws, but city ordinances related to tree preservation, tree planting, and maintenance. And that includes ensuring that private trees are protected, which is a long road ahead of us to make sure that there's some sort of ordinance that preserves privately owned trees. As you might imagine, that's a very hot button issue that we have not yet deeply engaged with. So I'm going to end with what you can do. I invite you to join us. So the easiest way to join us is to receive our newsletter, and I can share these links afterwards. You can follow us on social media. You can get involved in other ways. You can volunteer. You can get your company or a group together to get involved. If you know any groups or organizations, whether they're businesses, groups in the city of Boston, people who might be interested in us, please connect us to them. We'd love to expand our network. We do have board openings, so if anyone has interest or capacity to join a board, happy to talk about that. Like I said, Arbor Day is Friday. I've never seen our events calendar quite so busy as it is in the next couple of weeks. So if you're around and want to come to an event, we have a book talk on Friday. We have a tree planting on Saturday. We have lots of events coming up. So please attend. Oops. And then always appreciate any donations that you may give to help us sustain our mission. And I always like to end with this beautiful image of how we might reimagine our city of Boston. So with that, I will leave this on the screen for a minute. If you want to take a picture with your camera of the QR code, you want to jot down my email address or our URL, and I'm happy to engage in conversation here. Thank you for the time and for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, David. And particularly, thank you for the work that you do. It is inspiring and important. And we're excited to be one of the first to welcome your new launch of Tree Boston, your new logo, etc. I love the image you had of Boston as a leaf. That was cleverly done. And also just the data available on Tree Canopy is, I know for one, I want to dive into it and do the parsing that you had talked about. Well, a couple of questions. One of which is you mentioned about your working with City Hall and the support from some people at City Hall. I was wondering what other departments and local organizations you work with and maybe don't work well with, if there are any. I'm thinking, everything from Department of Public Works and DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, Mass Parks, as well as nonprofits. Can you talk a little bit about who you work with?
Yeah, so it's a very complicated landscape, right? I mean, there are tens of thousands of parcels in the city of Boston, and 60% of them or so are privately owned, 60% of the land. So, we try to play nice with whoever wants to work with us. So the Department of Parks and Recreation is the department that runs the Urban Forestry Division. Under the leadership of Mayor Wu, that has expanded from a staff of three when she started as mayor to a staff of about 15 or 16. Um, so we play very nice with them. We play nice with DCR when we can because they are great people there. They are all overworked, and at capacity, we have planted trees on DCR property. We are looking to deepen our partnership with them, but it's not always the easiest organization to navigate and know who to talk to. But when you find the right person and the right connection, we can make stuff happen with them. We partner a lot though, or sort of, I think our sweet spot is working with community organizations that are on the ground, that know their neighbors and their neighborhood the best. Whether that's, local community groups, whether it's schools, whether it's urban farms. These places are often our mission aligned, or at least values aligned, if not mission aligned. And we work a lot with them. I'd say some of the organizations that we have the hardest time working with is some of the more ardent environmentalists who often see things in black and white, and sometimes it's hard for us to take a more nuanced approach because the work we do is so complicated by the lived experiences of the communities where we work, and it's sometimes hard for us to get behind a group of residents who are saying no to public housing because their worry is a few trees are going to come down. That's not a position that we're willing to necessarily support. We see a real need to think creatively and not take a firm stand on some issues that might be gray. So, yeah, it's sort of interesting to me is that I admire a lot of the work that advocates do. There are many advocates that we work with and we have strong relationships with. Um, but sometimes things are painted more black and white than they really are. And I really think that folks out there who are doing work on the ground for things like public housing or for park maintenance really have good intentions. I really do, and they're hardworking people, and it's not, Boston can be a pretty harsh place to sort of um, have try to have mediated and understandable conversations.
Um, yes, we've all experienced that, I think, at some point or other in our own local communities too.
Yes.
Um, and two examples that come to mind that you mentioned is I remember one community was basically an open field, wanted to plant trees, and some people thought that, and this is actually a question for you, some people thought that the trees would increase crime. It'd be dark,
Hmm.
shaded, and that sort of thing. And
Hmm.
another is when I lived in Cambridge, I remember you'd see a lot of newly planted trees, but they were tree stumps because people had locked their bikes to the
Hmm.
trees. And then a thief cut down the tree in order to get the bike. And so they put
Hmm.
signs up, please don't lock your bike to the trees. So, anyway, some of those hassles, do you get any reaction of, well, the trees are going to, darken my street, my sidewalk, and that's going to be dangerous, or trees are going to be a problem I've heard of along highways. Some people have complained are going to be dangerous because cars will run into them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I try not to judge people's relationships with trees. People have had different experiences, and trees can be really scary things, right? They're big. They sort of hang over your house, right? They can fall on your house, they can fall on you, they can fall on your car. They mess up your gutters, they get into your sewer system. You have to rake the leaves in the fall. Um, they're they can cause strong emotions. And sometimes you don't know what someone has experienced with the tree. Um, but I think at the end of the day, most people appreciate them. But I think we have to come at it, and this is where my work is, or our work, I think, is again a little more nuanced, is come at it with a sense of compassion, right? Come at it with a sense of understanding and wanting to understand. I will say to answer your first question about the trees in the park, research has shown conclusively that trees actually reduce crime, right? That trees have an amazing ability to reduce stress, to build and strengthen community, and through that reduce levels of crime. Um, Cops, especially, and public safety officials have often taken that, flipped that, and said, no, trees are dangerous. People can hide behind trees, and you can't see a clean line of sight, and they've removed trees. Um, and then, I'll also say urban spaces are not designed for trees, right? We have not really built our urban spaces to be tree friendly for the most part. So when you talk especially about street trees, where there's compact soil, where there's dog urine, where there's salt coming from the winter, right? Uh, where there's other things like wires overhead, these are not spaces that trees are meant or were evolved to thrive in. And then you do things like people lock their bikes, and even if the bike isn't stolen, right, you have this rubbing between the bark and the bike that can lead to abrasion and eventually infection. None of these problems are insurmountable. They just require a really coordinated effort to properly value trees. So let's make sure there are enough bike parking stations where people don't need to park their bikes. Let's make sure that we're replacing soil with better soil. Let's make sure that we're planting the right trees under the wires, or that we're removing wires and pulling them underground. Um, it's not to say that, yeah, we have, especially in Boston and Cambridge and these other cities, every square inch is so valuable, right? Every square inch, everyone wants a piece of that real estate, that trees are often an afterthought. And the question is, how do you make them central to any urban design?
And one question we had just sort of on that line is just talking about some of the challenges is that keeping a young tree alive, in particular,
Mhm.
providing water has been a challenge for some people. How do you handle that?
So we've tried so many things. We tried an adopt a tree model where people sign up to care for a tree. Um, we've tried technology, right? It really comes down to just pure manpower, right? Pure people power. And I'm really proud to say that just last week we purchased our second watering truck. So we have two pickup trucks now. Um, what was a staff of one arborist, I just tomorrow is going to be offering a offer letter to a second tree care coordinator. So we're going to have an arborist, a tree care coordinator, and two tree care assistants. So we're going to have a team of four. So they'll be able to double their work because we're going to have two trucks. And we're thinking creatively about how to water trees. It's a lot of work. People think when you plant a tree, either you can walk away or, someone else will water it. But when we price out a tree that we're going to plant in the park, we commit to 2 years of watering. Now that's 2 years of watering once a week for 30 weeks. You sometimes have to water it twice a week if it's really hot. Uh, the price for us to plant a tree is, $400 or so, all in, including the watering bags and the labor and the, purchase of the tree. The price to water that tree for 2 years is about $600, right? And so it really is most of our money is going to tree care. And honestly, who wants to pay for that, right? People want a photo op with them planting a tree. So we're committed to that. I'd like to do it, increase our watering to 3 or 4 years. That's sort of the establishment period. Right now, 2 years is standard. So we're going to continue to explore that. And we have some really amazing folks on our team who are doing that work.
Good, good. Tom asked a question. As you look out over the next 2 or 3 years, what would be the most significant things or projects you'd like Tree Boston to accomplish uh, or make the most programs on?
Um, yeah, thank you for all these questions. God, that's a tough one because I almost feel like I just want to take a step back right now and just make sure we're doing things better and we're doing more of it. So I want to continue our public tree plantings. I think our sweet spot is actually our private yard tree plantings, um, because there's less bureaucracy. There's a wider variety of trees you can plant. There's more soil volume. The soil tends to be better. So all these things, I really want to lean in on that space. Um, but I think the area where we need to grow the most is around advocacy. So specifically around policy and continued funding, everything from the city to the state to hopefully the federal level. Um, and I think really committing to making sure that the way in which the city operates is not only proactive, but also community centered and focused on tree maintenance and tree care for the long term. Um, I've become more and more a fan of policy as I'm doing this work because I think policy can really make long-term change. And I think that's one place that I want to take the organization in the coming couple of years.
Yeah. And sort of related, speaking of that, there are a number of organizations come across over the years that are also interested in greening up urban areas. And I think of
Hmm.
the City Park Alliance and the Trust for Public Land, and
Hmm.
even the big one, Arbor Day Foundation.
Hmm.
How are you unique or different when you compare to those sort of national, regional organizations?
Yeah, so Day Foundation and American Forest are two huge national organizations. And they do things on a scale that I can't even imagine, right? They do international projects. But and they do a lot of reforestation out in the woods and the wilds. But when it comes to urban forestry, Arbor Day Foundation does not go out and plant trees in Boston. They do not go out and plant trees in DC. They do not go out and plant trees in Chicago. They turn to their local partners and they say, hey, we have a project we want to do, or we have a funder. American Forest is the same way, that wants to do a project in Boston. So, trying to think who we have. We have FIFA that we're working with next week. They're doing a planting across all 16 cities in America where they're having their matches, where they're planting trees. Um, we have worked with TD Bank through Arbor Day Foundation. We've worked with Salesforce through American Forests. All these organizations, all these national organizations, they're, they know they know where their work is effective and where they need to bring in partners. The Arbor Day Foundation has been really amazing at also connecting us to other urban forestry nonprofits. So there's a group called the Alliance for Community Trees that the Arbor Day Foundation runs, and that's all of us who work in the urban forestry landscape come together and we talk shop. Trust for Public Land, Trustees of Reservations, those types of organizations, they do great work. But I think, like many of these organizations, their work sort of stops where their land acquisition stops. I think what's unique about the work we do is that um, we don't own land, at least not yet, or we don't manage land. We engage residents. So at the center of our mission is people and making sure that the people of Boston are the ones who are involved in this work, that the trees are on their land, right? I firmly believe the closer you live to a tree, not only is better life you're going to have, but the more connected you are to that tree. Um, so our missions are, very similar. Our values are very similar, but the way in which we do our work, the type of land we use, the I mean, I have nothing against these organizations. I think they're wonderful. We've partnered with many of them in the past, but we know our lanes, and I think that's really important lesson I've learned over the years is figure out what you guys are, what we're good at, or what's our unique sort of value add, and lean in on that, and let the other people do the work that they're good at.
Hmm. Yeah. Good. Now, what is also, it doesn't sound like from what you said that they are a source of grants. That's not their modus operandi, that they provide organizations like,
PPL?
yeah, some like, yeah, Trustee for Public Lands or the,
Well, the Mass Audubon provides grants. I mean, it's through a sort of wonky little grant from the city that's sort of shuffled through um, Mass Audubon, and then American Forest and Arbor Day Foundation certainly provide
Mhm.
grants.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did hear not that long ago from Charles River Watershed Association, and,
Mhm.
and they were talking about green infrastructure to help on stormwater issues. And this is Sandra, sorry, is asking this question. Is your mission in any way coordinating with them, or is it competing with them? This sort of idea about needing to handle stormwater issues.
No, I don't think it's competing at all. I really, I actually one of the first people I spoke to when I started thinking about the this idea of Tree Boston was their current exec director, whose name escapes me right now. Um, what is her name? I can't remember. So Charles River Watershed Association, great organization. I actually love the organizations. What they're able to do that I've found no other organization able to do is work across municipalities, which is an amazing feat because if you start working in municipalities, you realize how unique each one of them is in Massachusetts, from their governance to their politics to, their operations. Um, so I see us as totally aligned with organizations like that. Sure, we compete for similar grants sometimes. Sure,
Mhm.
we sometimes compete for media attention, right? Or messaging. Um, but at the end of the day, we're rowing in the same direction, no pun intended, right? We're on the same river, we're on the same planet, and we certainly want to support their work because if we succeed, they'll succeed, and if they'll succeed, we'll succeed. So, are there moments where we butt up against each other? And, I'm not talking about Charles River Watershed in specific here, but with other, mission near organizations, sure, there are points of friction, right? There are points where we might feel like they're entering our territory or vice versa. But at the end of the day, this issue is too important for us to sort of try to hoard space and resources. I think they do amazing work, and I hope they think the same of us.
Right. But it's interesting. There's a number of questions, it seems like, on this particular issue. Like Lillian asks, when you are working with an organization for a grant,
Mhm.
they have their mission and they have their agenda. Do you match your objectives with their objectives? Do you have to change your plans to really coordinate with them better? Not that that's a bad thing, but just, how does that work?
So it's a good question. And I'm going to answer it in three different ways. First of all, I think one of my philosophies is that tell me your problem that you're facing, and I'll tell you why I think a tree can help solve that problem. That could be your child's education. It could be public health. It could be stormwater. It could be, asthma. It could be any of these things. A tree is not the solution, but it could be part of your solution. So I think a tree is a malleable enough object to sort of slot into many different ways of talking and approaching problems. It's what I call, from my studies as a historian sociology of science, it's called a boundary object, where people can come together and understand the object in different ways and talk about it in different ways, and yet come to a common understanding. Um, that does, to my second point, require negotiation. It requires changing and shifting and adapting program metrics or program goals or program, you know, um, approaches. Um, so oftentimes that's we're still nimble. We're still an organization that's only 8 years old and we only have a staff of, 10 people. We can pivot a lot more quickly than a huge organization can. We might not have the resources to always do what a grant requires, but we certainly are nimble enough that we can pivot. And finally, you have to know when to say no, right? You have to know when uh, an opportunity knocks on your door that although it might look good or sound good or even, further the mission, it's not the right time or it's not the right fit. And that can be hard, right? But I think I'm learning more and more that that's why strategic plans are so important. That's why coming up with values around an organization, a clear description on the mission is so very important because you can point to it and say, wow, this sounds great. It's not part of what we want to do right now.
Right. The last question, but just on that theme about, the overarching strategic plans, does Boston itself have a long-term plan? Tom is wondering for greening Boston with specific projects they'd like to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years. And if so, are there places for NGOs like yourself to help them implement
Yeah.
that plan?
So, Boston in 2021, 2022 released its first ever urban forest plan. And that's the one I'm most familiar with. There are lots of other plans for lots of other projects. And that's a 20-year plan on or 25-year plan on how Boston will grow its urban forest with a whole bunch of different lists, sort of checklists of activities, projects, partnerships, everything from, hiring more people on staff to developing, I can't even remember, like, creating an inventory of all the trees, which Boston didn't have until a year or two ago, to marketing, right, to community education. And some of these action items on the plan are listed as, this will be led by the city of Boston, or this will be led by this such and such department in the city of Boston. And some of them are led by Boston, but collaborated with local community organizations. And some of them this is something that we want community groups to do, to lead on, because we realize A, we don't have capacity, and B, we're probably not very good at it. So, it's a very thorough document. There are other plans to answer the question that are more focused on specific projects. Sort of the infrastructure sort of component. This is more of a systems approach, this urban forest plan.
Okay. Well, we've come up against the hour. I really want to thank you again very much for your work, and also give you an opportunity to tell people again how to contact you. But before we let you go, I have to ask you, what's your favorite urban tree?
You're the third person in 3 days to ask me that question. And I came up with the right answer for it the other day. And that's it depends on the day. It really does. Like it depends on not only my mood, but where the tree is in its, especially this time of year, right? What it's doing. Is it showing off its flowers like all the cherry trees are doing now, or the magnolias were doing a week or two ago? Is it just starting to bud? Is it leafed out entirely? I think I certainly have favorites, but I don't have a favorite. So I really love the American elm. I really love the black tupelo. Those are two of my favorites. I like the tulip poplar. I think that's an amazing tree. Can't beat a good maple. Um, yeah, I have a whole lot, but those are probably my top three or four right now.
Okay. And as I said, would you like to tell people once more how they can get more
Yeah,
information?
can I email in the chat for everyone, and
Yep. Yep. We got it.
um,
David at treeboston.org.
you can also
Okay.
follow
That's
us there.
Yep. And this is recorded, and a lot of people who can't make it will come back at a later time to watch the recording. It's will be posted on our website by Jeff sometime in the near future. So once again, thank you, everybody. treeboston.org. Check them out. And until next time, I'm going to sign off.